My wife called to say she'd be dining with clients that evening. I couldn't shake off the unease, so I went to the restaurant to pick her up. But what I saw outside the restaurant, my always principled wife collapsed into her assistant's arms. Hey, is there a difference between small betrayal and big betrayal? I decided, right there, to file for divorce. Chapter 1: The President's Drunkenness. The dinner party dragged on until late at night. As the restaurant doors opened, laughter spilled out into the cold air. President's son, it's still early. Why don't we go to the club for a few more drinks? And then I saw it. My usually composed and self-disciplined wife, the one who always maintained strict boundaries, was leaning against her assistant's chest. Her hair fell loosely over Ethan's shoulder. Her usually immaculate suit wrinkled and opened just enough to reveal the strap of her innerwear. Fernanda's son had always been proud, never once showing weakness in front of her subordinates. Ethan, noticing me at the doorway, froze as if struck by lightning. Panicking, he straightened Fernanda up. But she didn't even notice. Instead, she leaned back into him again, curling closer. What are you doing? She murmured. Relax. With me here, no one will dare bully you. Her voice was laced with drunken warmth, yet carried that unshakable authority that used to make entire departments fear her. Seductive, assertive, and, at that moment, devastating. Watching her like that, a strange bitterness welled up in me. When Fernanda first took over the company, it was chaos. Veteran executives didn't respect her, saying a fresh graduate like her couldn't handle the weight of leadership. The outside world doubted her too, mocking that the Sun Corporation had no successor. But through sheer determination, she carved her own path. She slashed half the company's projects, funneled all resources into a few key ventures, and drove out the complacent old-timers who had leeched off the business for years. Even relatives from her own family clan, she treated them no differently. Everyone at the company feared her. Even employees who had worked there for over a decade trembled in her presence. Terrified of making the slightest mistake, she managed to balance family and career perfectly. And never once, had a single rumor attached to her name. To the world, she was the CEO with the strongest sense of boundaries. But tonight, she'd thrown herself, body and soul, into her assistant's arms, and even shielded him in front of everyone. Nothing about this was normal. President's son had too much to drink, Ethan said cautiously. When I didn't respond, he hurried to explain. She took my place. I'm allergic to alcohol, so she drank for me. I said nothing. I simply walked up, took Fernanda from his arms, and felt the heavy scent of alcohol on her skin. Her body was feverish as she slumped against my shoulder. Without a word, I led her toward the car. Ethan trailed nervously behind, half reaching out as if to help. But when he met my cold stare, he froze and stepped back. I laid Fernanda in the seat. She collapsed without resistance, the motion revealing a glimpse of bare skin. I grabbed a blanket from the back seat and covered her quietly. Sensing my anger, Ethan stammered. President, I'll head back then. I turned to him. Drive. Take us home. If you can't handle anything else, at least you can drive, right? His forced smile faltered. After a long, awkward pause, he muttered, I don't know how to drive. President's son came on her own today. The company driver took the day off. I froze. You can't drive. You can't drink. Then how the hell did you get hired as her assistant? Driving was the most basic skill for an assistant, essential for client pickups, document deliveries, situations exactly like tonight. Chapter 2: The Secret of the Passenger Seat. He didn't seem to understand what I was saying. Instead, he walked straight to the car and got into the passenger seat, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He adjusted the seat with practiced ease. Then, without hesitation, opened the car's mini fridge and took out a bottle of water. Watching his casual movements, I felt a sharp sting in my chest. Fernanda and I both have a touch of obsessive cleanliness. We never let anyone else sit in our passenger seat. There was even a time when my cousin, riding in her car for the first time, sat there by accident. Afterward, Fernanda had the entire car deep cleaned inside and out. But Ethan's behavior now, so familiar, so unrestrained, it was obvious he'd sat there many times before. You want me to be your driver? My voice turned cold. Ethan froze mid-sip, looking at me with a hint of confusion, as if he couldn't understand why I was making a fuss. President's son said she'd drive me home. I cut him off sharply. You can't even handle something that simple without me stepping in. My tone grew darker, heavier. Ethan's lips parted as if to defend himself. But when he met my gaze, the kind of gaze that allowed no argument, he swallowed his words. He knew my temperament. I wasn't someone to be challenged, even if I no longer involved myself in company affairs. I was still Fernanda's husband, and more importantly, an investor, one of the founding shareholders, someone far above the reach of a lowly assistant. After an awkward pause, he slowly unbuckled his seatbelt. When he opened the car door, He glanced back, deliberately, at Fernanda lying in the back seat, as if waiting for her to say something, to stop him. But Fernanda was already lost to the haze of drunkenness, her mind foggy and unfocused. In the end, he stepped out of the car. He stood by the roadside, watching silently as we drove away into the night. Chapter 3: The Truth Behind the Feigned Drunkenness. On the drive home, my thoughts were a storm. In the back seat, Fernanda frowned in her sleep, as if caught in some unpleasant dream. The more I replayed what had just happened, the clearer my sense of unease became. Some things don't need proof, you just know. The car moved smoothly along the road. Suddenly, Fernanda shifted. Then her voice rose softly behind me. "Where's Ethan?" I glanced in the rearview mirror. She was sitting upright now, her clothes tidied, her posture composed, completely unlike the dazed, drunken woman from earlier. She casually ran her fingers through her hair. "Having dinner with that pack of old foxes. If I didn't pretend to be drunk, we'd still be stuck there till dawn. If I actually got drunk for real, who knows what kind of mess would have happened." Her tone was calm, matter-of-fact, as if the scene of her leaning into Ethan's arms had been nothing more than part of the act. "I know you don't like Ethan," she continued lightly, "so I didn't stop you earlier. It's just a small thing. Surely you're not jealous, are you?" She leaned closer, intending to kiss me on the cheek, but I turned my head instinctively, avoiding her. Her expression froze midair. Then she raised an eyebrow, a playful glint flashing in her eyes. "What's this? Don't tell me you actually think I've got something going on with my assistant. After seeing a tigress, who'd still care about a puppy?" I stayed calm, my voice steady as I laid out the facts. "He's just an intern assistant, but look at him tonight. He can't even handle basic tasks. No sense of business etiquette whatsoever. How does someone like that even get hired?" Frustration bubbled in my chest. I pulled out a cigarette and lit it. Fernanda's voice softened, her tone coaxing. "He just graduated. He's inexperienced. He's still learning. Don't be so hard on him. Weren't we the same back then? Everyone starts somewhere. You have to give young people time to grow." I exhaled slowly, smoke clouding the space between us. "And since when do young people grow? By shadowing the company president every day? Has the Sun Group really run out of talent to that point?" Fernanda paused, momentarily speechless, then quickly tried to steer the conversation away. "All right, enough. There's no need for us, as husband and wife, to argue over an outsider. You're overthinking it. Maybe you just don't know his background." When she mentioned Ethan again, her voice turned gentle, almost tender. "Both his parents are ill, while others spent their summers traveling or gaming. He worked tirelessly to pay his tuition and his parents' medical bills. He never even touched a car before he graduated. So of course he can't drive yet. I kept him on because he's hardworking and filial. People like that, when trained, will be loyal to the company." I didn't answer. You can't wake someone who's pretending to be asleep. Chapter 4: The Crack in the Marriage of Convenience. Fernanda and I were bound by a business marriage. Compared to other arranged partnerships in the business world, we were, in many ways, the lucky ones. Our two families had already been long-term collaborators, so we had known each other since childhood. We understood one another's tempers, personalities, and pasts, at least to a certain extent. In truth, the Sun family was marrying up. They were newly rich, while my family, the Chans, had deep connections within the government, access to valuable contracts and exclusive projects. Back then, my father preferred the Gao family for the alliance, but I'd sensed too much ambition there. The kind of ambition that couldn't be controlled once the marriage was sealed. The Suns, however, were easier to handle. We Chans could keep them in check whenever necessary, and Fernanda herself, she was shrewd, disciplined, and pragmatic. It turned out I was right. After marriage, everything she did pleased me. I could trust her completely. With my support, she secured her position in the company, and both families entered what could only be described as a honeymoon period. Projects launching one after another, profits flowing steadily. Of course, as any true businessman knows, you must always prepare for the worst-case scenario. So, even though our companies worked together on paper, the real decision-making power remained firmly in Chan hands. Fernanda resisted at first, but after a few uneventful years, no scandals, no disputes, everyone gradually forgot about that imbalance, until Ethan appeared, and with his arrival, I smelled danger. After years in the business world, my instincts had become sharper than logic. As a successful businessman, I could not allow any unstable elements to exist within my marriage. So that night, when we got home, I called a private investigator. By noon the next day, my unease turned into cold, solid truth. The investigator sent me a photo, a property certificate, Uptown Villas, Building 007. Owner, Ethan. I knew that neighborhood. The houses there had been completed just last year, not far from Fernanda's company. It was one of the most expensive developments in the city, each villa costing no less than 10 million yuan. My chest tightened. Last year, I'd actually suggested buying a house there. It would have let Fernanda sleep an extra half hour before work, but she had refused instantly. The company's finances aren't great right now. There's no need to spend that kind of money. We should use it to secure more projects. Save something for our future children instead. I pulled out a cigarette and took a long drag. My thoughts turning darker with each breath. What kind of intern assistant could be worth 10 million yuan? When I finished the cigarette, I called my own assistant. That very afternoon, 3 contracts on the verge of signing were frozen. 10 ongoing projects, every team with Fernanda's people involved, were ordered off-site. At the same time, as a shareholder and investor of the Sun Group, I publicly demanded that all veteran employees receive higher benefits. After all, if a newly hired assistant could somehow earn a luxury villa worth 10 million, then those who had worked and bled for the company surely deserved far more. Fernanda Sun probably thought she'd hidden everything well. She assumed that because I wouldn't stoop to argue over small matters, I would stay silent this time too, but she had forgotten. When I want to know something, nothing stays hidden from me. If she dared to cross the line, she should have known I'd strike back. This wasn't about pettiness. A woman as calculating as Fernanda would never act without weighing every consequence, which meant this was a deliberate choice, and for that, I decided she no longer deserved forgiveness. Chapter 5: The Temptation of the Villa. It was dusk when I got home. I hadn't even taken off my coat when the front door opened again. Fernanda walked in first, her face dark and tense. Ethan followed close behind, clutching a small red booklet in his hand. I glanced at them both, my tone sharp. Why did you bring him here? Changing into my house slippers, I kept my voice cold and steady. Fernanda forced a faint smile, stepping closer to take my arm. Please don't be angry. I brought him because I want to clear things up. Last night, he waited forever to get a taxi. It was almost dawn when he got home. I felt bad for him, so I arranged a place near the company for him to stay. Don't overthink it. Ethan's eyes glistened as he stammered. Mr. Chan, I'm sorry. I really am. I live far away, and President Sun just felt bad for me. It's the first time anyone's ever given me something so expensive. I was overwhelmed. I forgot to refuse it. I didn't mean anything by it. Sir, please don't misunderstand. As he spoke, he couldn't help sneaking a glance at Fernanda. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. If something displeased me, I never hid it. You're an assistant, I said flatly. You can't drive. You can't drink. You don't know the first thing about business etiquette. How exactly did you get this job? Don't talk to me about training new talent. There are plenty of departments where rookies can train under any random manager. For instance, so why you? Why are you the one by Fernanda's side, when you're clearly incapable of helping her in the slightest? I believed the question was fair, not aggressive, not unreasonable. In a company, efficiency is what matters most. Ethan's throat bobbed, but no words came out. What's your problem? Fernanda snapped suddenly, stepping between us. Her face flushed. He just graduated. He's still naive. There's no need to be so harsh. Harsh? I laughed under my breath, pushing past her. I reached out and grabbed the red booklet from Ethan's hand. Lou, I called. The butler, who'd been waiting by the door, stepped inside quietly. This house, I tossed the deed at him, is yours now. Ethan's face turned scarlet, his fists clenched tight, his lips trembling as if he wanted to protest, but fear kept him silent. His desperate gaze darted toward Fernanda, begging for help. Fernanda, I said evenly, we're both intelligent people. Don't insult me by pretending I don't understand your little games. Don't make me tear the mask off. Lou took the booklet from my hand, then turned to Ethan. Come with me. Fernanda opened her mouth, but in the end, only sighed. Ignoring Ethan's pleading eyes, she merely gestured for him to comply. His steps were unsteady as he left, and just before he crossed the doorway, he looked back one last time, his eyes full of wounded resentment. A helpless, stifled defiance that nearly spilled over. During dinner, the silence between us was heavy. Fernanda finally spoke, her voice low and dull. Ethan's just a recent graduate, Michael. He's still pure, still learning. You were too hard on him. Pure? I let out a humorless chuckle. Are you his father? His mother? Once he's in the company, he has only one identity, an employee. If he's not capable, then someone else takes his place. It's that simple. Do I really need to spell that out for you? I sneered again, knowing full well she wouldn't listen. After all, he wasn't my employee. If she wanted to pick up strays, that was her business. I took another bite, then added coldly. But you know my bottom line. I don't care whether you pity him or have other motives. Before things cross the point of no return, end it. Fernanda sipped her soup quietly, her reply barely above a whisper. Michael, you're overthinking. It's really not as complicated as you imagine. Breaking rules, I said slowly. is where favoritism begins. Lowering standards, that's where corruption starts. I've said enough. Think about it carefully. Next time I act, I won't hold back. That night, we slept in separate rooms. Chapter 6: The Encounter in the Underground Garage. That uneasy feeling inside me kept growing stronger. It was like watching a project slowly rot from the inside out. You could see its collapse coming long before it arrived. Fernanda wasn't ignorant of what this meant. She knew perfectly well that our marriage wasn't just a personal matter between us. It was the bridge connecting two powerful families, and the lifeline binding two major corporations together. When the Chan family had invested real money, real influence, to help her secure her position in the Sun Group, our goal had been clear: to ensure both families could grow together and face the uncertainties of the future as one. She had to know, if cracks appeared between us, the sharks circling around us would seize the chance to strike. And sure enough, the very next morning, Ethan was reassigned to another department. I've cut off all contact with Ethan outside of work, Fernanda said calmly. So stop fixating on him. Her tone was neutral, almost indifferent. But I caught a flicker of exhaustion in her eyes. I didn't respond. She hadn't done this to appease me. She'd simply made the most logical choice. A woman like Fernanda would never throw away her position for the sake of a mere intern. After that, the house was quieter. Ethan's name was never mentioned again. Everything seemed to fall back into order when the two companies held their joint project ribbon cutting. Fernanda attended on my arm, smiling for the cameras. In that moment, the gossip and speculation surrounding us vanished. The alliance between the Sun and Chan families stood firm, and our marriage appeared as solid as ever, at least from the outside. After all, the paparazzi never stopped watching. Every glance, every gesture between us could be twisted into a headline. By the time the event ended, the sky had darkened. I accompanied Fernanda to the parking garage. As soon as we stepped in, I saw a familiar figure. Ethan. He was mopping the floor, his clothes stained, sweat dripping down his temples. The moment he saw us, he froze. President Sun. Mr. Chan. His voice trembled, and he bowed quickly. But his eyes, those eyes couldn't help drifting toward Fernanda. There was hurt there, and humiliation. Like a kicked dog waiting to be pitted. My colleague spilled something earlier, he stammered. They asked me to clean it up. Fernanda's expression changed instantly. The polite, composed smile she'd worn moments ago vanished. Replaced by fury, she stormed over, snatching the mop from his hands. Don't clean it. Someone else will handle this. I stood still, watching her back, and felt the anger I'd been suppressing reignite. In the car, she slammed the door shut, her temper finally snapping. Why are you targeting him again? I've already had him reassigned. What more do you want? Why can't you just leave him alone? I let out a laugh, sharp, bitter. The one who assigned him cleaning duty was your own staff. He's an intern. Cleaning is part of the job. Isn't that what interns do? Run errands, do the grunt work. He's here to learn, not to be treated like some young master. But Fernanda wouldn't back down. You have any idea how much trouble your last stunt caused me? It took me days to smooth it over. Can't you stop picking on a kid? I raised my voice, cutting her off. First of all, I said coldly, he's nearly 25, not a kid. Then I raised a second finger. Second, I don't care how your company assigns its people. Finally, I turned to face her fully, my tone low and deadly calm. In my eyes, Ethan isn't even worth a dog. And understand this, if anyone dares to cross the line, I don't retaliate against dogs. Fernanda went pale, her lips parting. But no sound came out. She wanted to argue, but for once, she couldn't find a single word to say. The car fell into absolute silence. I lit a cigarette, the faint glow flickering in the dim cabin. The truth was clear to me. The crack between us was widening beyond repair. There was no point wasting breath on empty words anymore. If she had truly grown other thoughts, then I saw no reason to keep compromising. For the sake of a so-called alliance, the moment the car pulled into the driveway, Fernanda yanked open the door, stormed out without a word. She didn't even bother to grab her bag. I didn't follow. Instead, I turned the car around and drove straight back to the company. Sure enough, the next morning, after our board meeting ended, my assistant came in with a strange look on his face. President Chan, he said cautiously. President Sun took Ethan with her on a business trip. A cold, humorless laugh escaped my throat. A business trip? No, this was her way of showing me her defiance. And she didn't stop there. Within days, several of our joint projects were suddenly restructured. She'd pulled the same stunt as before, forcing every member of the Chan group off the teams. Even the informants I'd discreetly placed in her company were summarily dismissed, and the employee who'd made Ethan mop the parking lot that day, she was reassigned to logistics, a polite term for being buried alive in the back office. There was no mistaking it now. This wasn't coincidence. Nor was it pride. It was declaration. Fernanda's son had just declared war on me. Chapter 7: The beginning of the Cold War. I had my assistant contact the employees Fernanda had fired. I brought them all into my Chan group. At the same time, I reactivated the insurance policies I had set up earlier. Dozens of cooperative projects formally terminated Fernanda's employees, although the compensation could help her recover her costs. Her profits suffered a huge blow. You have to understand, when we secured that project, it was funded by both our companies. Now that many projects were nearing completion, just about to start generating profits, I kicked her out. As soon as the news spread, the Sun Group exploded. Many old employees secretly expressed dissatisfaction. After all, Fernanda had fired so many veteran workers just because of an intern. When the lips are gone, the teeth grow cold. For the following week, we fell into a cold war. Although those projects damaged Sun Group's interests, their core business remained completely unaffected. So she thought she had enough leverage to confront me. I never took the initiative to contact Fernanda. But news about her and Ethan kept reaching my ears. Ethan seemed desperate to let everyone know he was with her. Every day he took countless photos. Sometimes Fernanda's side profile. Sometimes the two of them eating together. Sometimes sitting in the car together. When my assistant placed those photos before me, I could only laugh. A stray dog dreaming of reaching heaven. Half a month later, the butler came in, speaking cautiously. "Sir, Madam has returned." I didn't even lift my head, still reviewing the documents. Fernanda didn't wait for me to greet her downstairs. She came straight to the study. "Mom and Dad want us to come home for dinner this weekend." She hesitated for a long time before speaking, her tone much softer. Apparently, the elders were getting anxious that such a small issue hadn't been resolved for so long. I gave a faint hum and kept working. Fernanda thought my response was an agreement and sighed in relief. She continued, "When we go back, don't say anything out of line. Our personal matters should be handled between ourselves." I slowly lit a cigarette and leaned back in the chair. "I never said I was going back with you." The smile on Fernanda's face froze instantly, a trace of displeasure in her voice. "What do you mean?" Too tired to beat around the bush, I opened a drawer and took out a document. "Take a look. If there's no problem, sign it." She looked puzzled. When she saw the words divorce agreement on the cover, her face turned pale. She jerked her head up, her voice trembling slightly. "Michael, what do you mean by this?" I flicked the ash off my cigarette, my expression blank. "I already told you clearly before. Read it. If everything looks fine, sign it. Don't cling to me. This was a marriage alliance between our families. Let's part on good terms." Fernanda looked at me in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. "Just because of this small issue with Ethan, you want a divorce? I told you, there's nothing between us. Why won't you believe me?" "It's not about believing you. You're a smart woman. You can see perfectly well that Ethan has improper feelings for you. Yet you still kept him close, even indulged him time and again, knowing our marriage ties our two families' interests together, and you still chose to fight with me over him." I paused. "In your heart, he's different. I have no interest in figuring out whether it's an emotional affair or a physical one. To me, betrayal is betrayal. There's no difference in scale. Behind me stands the entire Chan group. I don't have time to play childish love triangles with you. Cutting it cleanly benefits us both." The divorce papers slipped from Fernanda's trembling hands to the floor. She looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. But I raised my hand to stop her. "We're both adults. Every choice comes with regret. Look it over carefully. If you have no objections, sign it. Don't harbor any illusions. We're both people of the same circle. Leave some dignity for the future." With that, I got up and left the study. Chapter 8: The Decision to Divorce. Fernanda's muffled sobs came from behind me, but I didn't look back. The foundation of this marriage was trust. When she repeatedly chose to protect Ethan and ignored me, that foundation had already faded. I was about to go into the bedroom when Fernanda, rushing out, grabbed me. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice hoarse. "Michael, you have to believe me, we really are innocent. I only felt sorry for him, worried he'd be bullied, so I took care of him more." I nodded once and made a quiet sound, then pulled my hand back without expression. "I understand." Fernanda froze. She hadn't expected me to be so calm. Still clinging to a last hope, she hurriedly asked, "I promise I'll keep my distance from him from now on. Can we please not divorce?" I shook my head. "When your bottom line can't be kept because of another man, sooner or later even your underwear won't be kept. I don't have the time or energy to monitor these trivial matters of yours every minute. Maybe you truly don't have romantic intent. Maybe you're using him as a bargaining chip to manipulate me. Or maybe there are other reasons. I don't care to speculate. Your limits can be pushed again and again, but my limits cannot." Fernanda kept insisting, unrelenting. "I'm not trying to blackmail you. I just want you to know I can stand on my own, not be your appendage." I sighed. "You've said so much and still refuse to face your own heart. You don't actually care about Ethan, I know that. You approached him simply to test my limits, to see whether I'd break my principles for you, to gauge how much I'd tolerate you, so you could use that in future business dealings. A flash of panic crossed Fernanda's eyes. She wanted to speak, but had no words left. You know I hate trouble the most. But now you've made this relationship increasingly troublesome enough that I no longer want to continue. Frankly, the mess between you and Ethan is trivial and unimportant to me. Next time you want to play games with someone, first think about your own cards. Fernanda fell to her knees and clung to my leg, her voice even more pitiful than before. Michael, I was wrong, forgive me. Please don't divorce me. I'll fire him right away. I'll never have any contact with him again. Can we go back to how things were? For some reason, seeing her cry did not move me at all. I turned away and left, leaving only a cold sentence behind. Discuss the divorce with your family as soon as possible. After saying that, I couldn't stand being in the house and walked straight out the door. Fernanda scrambled to her feet to grab me, but I sidestepped and dodged her. Michael, give me one more chance. The day after tomorrow we'll go to my parents and have a family dinner together. My reply remained icy. Tell my lawyer whatever you have to say. Once inside the car, I sent another message to my assistant, telling him to prepare. After the divorce, clear out all cooperative projects with the Sun Group. Fernanda and I had been married 5 years. Over those 5 years we'd worked on too many joint projects. Severing them all wouldn't be done overnight. In fact, post-divorce it wouldn't be necessary to terminate every collaboration. But I tend to plan for the worst, especially where women are concerned, these creatures who often lose control of their emotions. For the foreseeable future I put all my energy into work. Fernanda's calls came one after another to my assistant. I had already blocked her. Chapter 9: Ethan's Provocation. 3 days later, I had just finished a meeting when my assistant came over and said quietly, President Sun came to see you earlier. She waited all morning, but when you didn't come down, she left. I replied indifferently. If she comes again, tell her I'm not available. To me, Fernanda was now just a stranger, without emotional ties. I could only judge people by their value and benefit. Was working with the Sun family high risk or high profit? Would the post-divorce scandal affect the Chan Group? Even Fernanda's emotional state had become a metric for whether I would ever cooperate with her again. Perhaps our arranged marriage had been a mistake from the start. If we had only talked business and never mixed in feelings, none of this mess would have happened. That night, I worked late into the night. Just as I opened the car door, a figure suddenly rushed out from the side. To my surprise, it was Ethan. Long time no see. He tilted his head at me, eyes filled with provocation and disdain. I found it amusing and raised 3 fingers. I'll give you 3 minutes to perform. Ethan sneered. Michael, you're still as insufferable as ever. You think you're somebody just because you have money. But I still beat you, didn't I? He seemed to be waiting for me to explode, but I simply glanced at my watch. You've got 90 seconds left. Not getting the reaction he wanted, he raised his voice. What makes people like you so special? You were just born lucky. Let me tell you something, I did it on purpose. If I had your background, I'd be 10 times better than you. I couldn't help but laugh. After a long, exhausting day, a clown was performing for me. You've got 15 seconds. Seeing my calm expression only made Ethan tremble with rage. What are you so proud of? You still ended up divorced because of me. Fernanda's a fool. I just crook my finger, and she comes running to me like a dog. If you married her, that says a lot about you too. I lowered my hand. Time's up. Good performance. I'm entertained. Honestly, if you have the time to block my car, you'd do better to convince Fernanda to sign the divorce papers. Who knows, maybe then you'll get to cling to her and live a life of luxury. With that, I ignored him and drove away. At this point, Ethan could no longer see Fernanda. Ever since I brought up the divorce, she had fired him. She even spread the word across the industry forbidding anyone from hiring him. His life had only just begun, and he had destroyed it himself. Those who try to take shortcuts into high society, if they succeed, they soar. If they fail, the price is unbearable. We didn't even need to lift a finger. Plenty of others would gladly take revenge on my behalf. Days went by. Fernanda still refused to sign the divorce papers. Every time my lawyer reached out, she either claimed to be in a meeting or simply didn't answer the phone. I had no choice but to visit the Sun family myself. When I met Fernanda's father and mother, they were unaware of the divorce. They received me warmly. I didn't beat around the bush. I laid the divorce agreement on the table, then briefly explained the situation. Uncle, Auntie, you can't force matters of the heart. Divorce is best for both of us. Rest assured, even after it's done, our business cooperation will continue. The Sun family were newly rich. They had plenty of money, as long as Fernanda didn't act foolishly. I didn't mind making money off her fortune. Of course, if she did act foolishly, I wouldn't hesitate to suppress the Sun Group. After I finished, their faces darkened. Her father wanted to persuade me otherwise. But I cut him off. I know what you're going to say, Uncle, but this matter can't be undone. Please, just talk to Fernanda. Dragging it out benefits no one. I turned to leave. Then Fernanda's voice came from upstairs. Her eyes were red, and she opened her mouth as if to speak. When I saw her, I spoke first. So you're here. Perfect. Do you have time tomorrow? Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get this done. Fernanda shook her head violently. Michael, please, can we not get divorced? Fernanda, you're a smart woman. Stop doing stupid things. With that, I turned and left. Her crying echoed behind me. Chapter 10: The Beggar's End. Another week passed. Fernanda finally gave in. After the mandatory divorce cooling-off period, we received our divorce certificate. She stood at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau and cried for a long time. I didn't comfort her. I turned and got in the car. After the divorce, our business cooperation didn't end. In fact, it became even closer. Just as I had predicted, Fernanda was a smart woman. She wouldn't be foolish enough to let personal emotions affect the growth of her corporation. But since our families were no longer bound by marriage, the contracts became far more cautious. To work with us, the Sun family had to invest 30% more than before. Even so, they refused to give up the advantage of partnering with us. The next time I saw Fernanda was 3 years later. At a friend's banquet, she stood quietly in a corner. Dressed simply, the once proud woman now nowhere to be found. When she saw me, she hesitated for a moment before finally walking over. Michael, it's been a long time. I nodded slightly. Because of what happened 3 years ago, the shareholders of the Sun Group had been furious with her. They even held a meeting to vote her out. In the end, it was only her father's desperate effort, paying an enormous price, that saved her position. But the incident caused internal turmoil. Many experienced and capable employees left the company. For the past 3 years, Fernanda had been living on edge, terrified of making even the slightest mistake. Michael, are you free tomorrow? Fernanda's eyes were filled with hope. I shook my head. Tomorrow I'm going with my wife for her prenatal checkup. You got married? Her expression was one of disbelief. Why haven't I heard about it? She's not from the industry, and it's my second marriage. There's no need to make it public. Realizing I wasn't joking, Fernanda's once straight posture suddenly collapsed. She walked away, dazed and hollow. Outside, on the street beside the banquet hall, a beggar was crawling on the ground, missing limbs. Please, have mercy, spare some change. The voice pulled Fernanda back from her thoughts. Instinctively, she reached for her wallet, but the moment she met the beggar's eyes, she froze. Ethan. Ethan recognized her too. A flash of resentment crossed his eyes, followed by desperate pleading. President Sun, please help me. Before he could finish, 3 burly men emerged from the nearby alley. Without a word, they started beating him mercilessly. Fernanda glanced at the scene once, then turned and walked away. Behind her, only Ethan's wretched cries echoed through the night.